And tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris will be speaking at a rally in Wisconsin, another critical swing state in this election. She was in Georgia earlier today, where she highlighted the issue of abortion. NTD's national correspondent Jason Blair brings us more from the campaign.
Vice President Kamala Harris is scheduled to speak soon on the stage behind me to a crowd of about 10,000 people. This is a larger event at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum here in Madison, Wisconsin. The city is known to be more progressive and liberal. I spoke with someone who will be attending the rally who said she thinks it's important for her to come here.
She's not just in the center of Milwaukee, where it's hard for people to get in. She's reaching to people in Janesville, Mount Horeb, really small places.
Other people I spoke with told me Madison is an easier city to get in and out of due to its size. This would help Harris reach more people in the surrounding smaller towns and motivate them to get out and vote. There's also the University of Wisconsin located in Madison. This would give Harris a chance to reach younger voters, which could be crucial for her to win the 10 electoral votes here in the state. Poll averages by Real Clear Politics are showing Harris up by only 1%, so the race is definitely tight. And before heading to Madison, Harris was in Georgia earlier, where she highlighted abortion.
It's the fundamental freedom of a woman to be able to make decisions about her own body and not have her government telling her what to do. Yes, we must trust women.
And Harris is expected to speak very soon in the next hour or so. She's expected to highlight topics like her plan for the economy and abortion. Back to you.
And this weekend, former President Trump will be holding a rally in North Carolina, another key state with 16 electoral votes. That's after Trump spoke to Jewish voters last night right here in Washington, D.C. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has an update on Trump's campaign.
Former President Donald Trump took to the stage to denounce anti-Semitism at two events last night. He was in Washington, D.C., working to persuade Jewish voters to cast their ballots for him. Trump talked about how he worked to terminate the Iran nuclear deal, secure Golan Heights as part of Israel, and recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and open the U.S. embassy there. Instances of anti-Semitism have been on the rise, especially on college campuses. Colleges across the U.S. experienced a wave of anti-Israel protests in response to the war. In one of many cases earlier this year, protesters blocked Jewish students from attending classes at UCLA. The university faces a lawsuit alleging that they refused to assist them. Now, Trump also said that in the next few weeks, he'll visit Springfield, Ohio, and Aurora, Colorado. It comes amid reports of a surge in crime committed by illegal immigrants in those cities. Springfield has been at the center of controversy over claims that illegal immigrants there were eating pets. Now, city and state officials have dismissed those claims as false. And an update on Trump's D.C. criminal case. Trump's attorneys last night asked the judges for information about special counsel Jack Smith's team's views on presidential immunity. Now, this comes after the Supreme Court ruled this summer that presidents do have immunity from prosecution for official acts. And on Saturday, Trump will hold a rally in Wilmington, North Carolina. His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, will hold a campaign event in Leesport, Pennsylvania, around the same time. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
And we invited Jason Palmer, former Democratic presidential candidate and co-founder of Together, a youth empowerment platform. He joins us now to discuss how we can ease the heated political discourse in our nation, and we'll learn what his campaign experience taught him about how to improve the process leading up to the presidential election. Jason Palmer, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you, Jason. So after the second assassination attempt on former President Trump, we have a bipartisan investigation underway. Both President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have responded by boosting security and extending gestures of unity. However, the political discourse still remains deeply polarized, both campaigns blaming one another for many of the nation's problems. Do you see a path here to get America back on track in sort of uniting around American values to rebuild trust across party lines?
Absolutely. I do think when this election is done, we're going to see many more Americans coming together, more bipartisan legislation. In fact, I've co-founded an organization called Together, ! Which is trying to get 18 young people elected to Congress, 8 Democrats, 8 Republicans, 2 independents, to join what's called the Problem Solvers Caucus. There already are 60 people in the House from both sides of the aisle who are committed to bringing our country together. And that piece of legislation that you just talked about, extremely bipartisan, saying that there needs to be more Secret Service protection for all major presidential candidates.
And Jason, what elements do you think of the Trump and Harris campaigns' messaging do you think could be sort of revamped, refocused to address key issues in a more constructive way for the American people?
Well, to a certain degree, elections have to be about drawing distinctions with the other side. But we all remember those times when we get in disagreements ourselves, either with family members or people at work, and you have to not make it personal. It really needs to be about the exact issue or disagreement that you have and not be name calling or demagoguing the other side. And, I've already seen Kamala Harris do this quite a bit, where she's trying to talk about, she will have a Republican in her cabinet. She will work across the aisle to pass that bipartisan immigration bill, for example. And, I do expect that the Trump camp will hear the same things from the electorate and start changing their messaging leading up to the final day of the election.
As you can see, the Trump campaign has also put Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat, as part of their steering committee as well. If you could, tell us more about Together's mission, your organization's mission, and how you decide which candidates to endorse across party lines, and what are the platform's ultimate goals?
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to build this bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus that already existed in the House, but get more young people into it. So when we were looking at candidates to endorse, we looked up for 5 different things. Number one, were they young? The average age of the candidates we're endorsing is 38 years old. Number 2, are they willing to join the Problem Solvers Caucus? We actually asked them to sign a pledge saying that they'll join the Problem Solvers Caucus, they'll work across the aisle. Number 3, they needed to have demonstrated leadership experience in their background, because leaders know you do have to work together. You achieve much more as a group than you do individually. And so some of them are entrepreneurs, small business people, military leaders. And then the final 2 criteria are related to that they're actually running against an opponent who is not in favor of bipartisanship. And, part of why I ran for president is I think that 80% of Americans in the middle just want our government to work and to actually do collaboratively the things that make America great.
Just briefly, that's what I was going to ask you next. I mean, you have kind of a firsthand look. When you run for president, you're running to be president of everybody in the country, not one particular party. What was your biggest takeaway in your campaign?
My biggest takeaway in the campaign is that the current primary system really does force candidates to go to the fringes, either to the far left or to the far right. And that's because not enough Americans vote in primaries. And so if there were, 1 or 2 reforms that I would make to our electoral system, it would be something called open primaries, where actually anyone could vote in those primaries, whether independent, Democrat, Republican. You could vote for someone on any side of the coin. That would bring a lot more people from the center into primaries. And the second is called ranked choice voting, where you could actually choose, number 1, I would want this person in office, number 2, number 3, number 4. That's actually been used in multiple states around the country. And I do think, these 2 reforms will make our system much more common sense, more purple, in fact, is the way that I think about it. If you have red and the blue together, it makes purple.
Jason Palmer, really appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.